Hello everybody, I'm Nathan Simmers from Practical Nutrition and Fitness, and this is Mac Buffamonte, Doctor of Chiropractic, and he is a rehab specialist at Physio Delta. Today we're going to talk about why traditional models of chiropractic and rehab don't always do it for us, and what we need to do in order to get sustainable results. So without further ado, why don't you give us a quick reason why traditional chiropractic work hasn't proven itself to be the right solution for most, if not all.
The traditional method of chiropractic care, I say it probably all the time, anytime I'm in front of a crowd, but it just doesn't tend to do much, if anything. Chiropractic adjustments, machinery that you might have in an office, things like electric stim, laser, even more sophisticated things, decompression tables, intersegmental traction stuff. All that stuff is great, feels good. Everybody that's ever gotten that says, okay, yeah, I love to get adjusted. I love these fancy machines. I love all this extra stuff. But like the research for every single one of them, and anybody that gets it routinely will tell you that it's all of a temporary nature. They're all temporary fixes. So if you're someone suffering from a chronic condition like chronic neck pain or chronic low back pain, you go to a chiropractor. The traditional formula is you go in like 2 to 3 times a week, you get adjusted, you get like something like electric stim that an assistant does for you for like 10 minutes, and then you're out the door. And then next thing you know, you've been going for 3 times a week for 3 years and you still have chronic low back pain or chronic neck pain. And because just it shows from time and time again, when you look at good quality articles, good quality research, it just doesn't pan out to fix the problem. Those things are great for, again, temporary things, but they don't solve the root cause of anybody's issue, and they don't help you build the individual building block structures to get you better for the long haul. So for example, those kind of therapies or interventions don't do what we do in that, like building mobility or increasing stability, or working on, strength and conditioning drills to not only get you out of pain, but to set you up for like your personal goals and help you out for the long haul. So we try to get away from those traditional avenues of chiropractic care, and nowadays I think more younger practitioners and practices are starting to get more into the rehab side of things, which is why we work so closely with like personal trainers for the long haul, like I keep saying.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the work that you do to get somebody rehab, get them back moving well, sets them up for future movement patterns is something to always work on. It's like everybody needs to move. We live in a very sedentary world, and we have to be intentional about getting more movement in. But if you're coming from a place where you have chronic pain and you need to get therapy, it's essential to get the help you need, but then you need to sustain that movement for longevity's sake. So I think that's a big part of why we are in the same room doing this stuff, because it's helpful to get the word out that it's like you gotta continue to take care of yourself. It's like the quick fix isn't really fixing anything. It's setting you up for, you could speak to this probably more about like joint laxity and how that over manipulation creates issues for that long term too, and that's a whole nother world too that people will end up with more issues from. And then you got to get back to learning how to control this stuff within your own nervous system and getting your core and your mobility in the right place and knowing when things should be firing, training them to fire on time. Those things are essential to keeping this stuff. And it's, like you said, using manipulations for temporary things and getting things back in position, but then it's like, well, what's going to keep it in position? And that's where the training really, you can't do it without the training.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard sell any which way that you try to be this like new rehab chiropractor and try to sell this new method of chiropractic care, which is like to be more functional, goal-oriented, patient-specific rehab. The general consensus, or I should say like the general population of patients out on the street, they all expect chiropractic practices to be the same. You come in, You are here for less than like 15 minutes, you get all those things that I talked about, and then you're out the door. And then everybody thinks that's the way to go, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then you come to a practice like mine where I say, wait a second, that's not what you're gonna do, because those things don't work for building strength, building stability, getting to the root cause, fixing your problem, or getting you back to whatever your goal is. You need to do this other avenue of care, which is much like physical therapy, but I hope that it's, you know, a little bit more specific and goal oriented, but very, very similar in the approach to physical therapy, but just nobody expects that from a chiropractic standpoint.
Sure.
But it's what's necessary if you want to get better. And then to piggyback where I said a second ago, where we work so closely, or my practice works so closely with a lot of like gyms and fitness studios, personal trainers in the area, is because once you're done with me, you typically want to keep going. Now you don't have to go in for therapy like seeing me at such a high frequency. Like I'll see you once or twice a week, but once we're done with our therapy plan, maybe you come in once a month, but you typically want to keep going on with the things that we've talked about or established, and that's where you go to a personal trainer and you continue along with the exercise protocols or drills that we set up in addition to whatever fitness goals you have. So for example, when like most patients come to see me, we try to establish what your foundational problem is, right? So somebody comes to me and they say, I have chronic low back pain. Okay, chronic low back pain, it's the most common thing ever, right? Mm-hmm. So why do you have chronic low back pain? You have to develop what the issues are. You go through a functional assessment. Is it your hip mobility? Is it core strength? Is it lack of stability within like the pelvis and hips and glutes? Is it inactivation of certain musculature, which is very similar to muscular weakness? Whatever the problem is, you set up a particular exam to find out which one is your problem, which structures are involved, which tissues are compromised. And then you and I will go through your entire rehab plan and say, okay, from your diagnosis and from the exam that we just did, your biggest contributor to low back pain is hip stability. Let's just pick hip stability, one of the more common ones. So then I go through your entire management plan of hands-on things to make your pain go away, like myofascial techniques, soft tissue therapies. And then I'm going to go through an entire management plan from a rehab perspective that is very heavily focused on hip stability and maybe hip strength and activation of musculature and whatever on. Mm-hmm. And then once we get done and you're like, hey, I'm out of pain, or I'm largely out of pain, and I'm like 99% better or 100% better, then I'm like, hey, that's good. Therapy's pretty much over then. You don't really need me so much anymore. Come in once in a while. Like some people continue to come in once a month or so to continue with their different protocols, but that's when you establish working alongside a solid trainer to which you can continue doing some of those hip stability exercises to build further strength throughout, and that this problem doesn't continue to come back like the traditional avenues of chiropractic care where you get adjusted and you have to go back for the rest of your life kind of thing.
Yeah, and one thing I like too, that you do more than, because a lot of chiropractors are realizing that like the crack and go kind of method isn't working. Mm-hmm. So like ART has become a thing, and soft tissue work has definitely become a thing for a lot of those guys.
Good therapies.
And they're great, right? But it's like the addition of strength training, and you got a whole gym setup going, and that stuff makes a difference, because like even just the soft tissue alone and the manipulation, which is helpful. Like they're getting closer to what it needs to be, but most of like old school chiropractic work is still not there. Like just soft tissue, just a crack and go. It's closer, you know, it's better than just manipulating, but it's like if you don't get that intrinsic stability, you don't learn how to breathe properly, learn your core control, get better movement mechanics, like you're gonna end up with similar stuff still, because you're gonna still move the same outside of a fitness situation or like being in the gym. Or in a therapy situation where you're set up for good mechanics. Like if you're moving the same outside of here, then you end up with similar things. So that's where like just getting the soft tissue and the cracking is still falling short. You know, and so I think that's one thing that I really like about what you do is like you bring all three in. You know, and it's like the more you move better, the less you need manipulations. Mm-hmm. You know, like, that's just the reality of life. And so it's you got all three going, where you can do the manipulations when it's needed, and you can attest to it. You need less as you move better. So
yeah, if you even need it at all.
And that's the other thing too. A lot of times you don't really need it.
Yeah.
You know, you start moving better and things just pull back into place and you're good. Exactly.
Yeah.
Why go mess with that at that point? Because we already talked about how joints can get overlaxed because of excessive manipulation. So it's oftentimes like the last thing I'm not a chiropractor, I'm a trainer, but like I've been in this world now for 10 years and it's like you don't need a lot of times, you know, and you see people who have been doing this for years on end and then they start seeing you and they're like, I don't need to see my chiropractor anymore, and their chiropractor gets mad at me. Yeah, it's like he's a different chiropractor, so it works different, you know, where you would expect the chiropractor to be happy that his patients are getting healthy and getting out of pain. You know, it is ironic, you know, and you get better movement and then you get mad at somebody because, you know, I mean, it's fun, you know, exactly.
I say that all the time, and like, I say it almost as a joke when I'm done with patients and I discharge them, and I say like in a joking way, I'm like, all right, you know, in a perfect world, I'll never see you again. Like, I don't want to see you again.
Sure.
Of course, from a business perspective, you want to see people again, but from like actually doing good work and getting your patients better to the degree that they don't have that problem anymore, if ever again, and they can get back to what they were doing. Like, for example, patients come in, they're like, oh, you know, that's why you have to focus on such a goal-oriented rehab plan, where some patients will come in and they have whatever. It can be something simple. They're like, I just don't want to have to call out of work anymore. Can you get me better so I don't have to call out of work? Okay, fine. Other patients might have something more complex. Like I'll get somebody from CrossFit that says, oh, you know, I really can't do anything overhead press because it's really hurting my shoulder. I can't do pull-ups. I can't do bench. And I'm like, okay, let's, you know, work on that management plan and so on and so forth to get you back. But the point is to get you better, fix all of those root causes that you've been having trouble with that we found within your functional assessment, so that you can go off on your own, and also providing you with the education of, you know what your problem is, you know how to fix it, you know what you can do on your own, so that you don't have to come see me forever. That's the whole point, and that's one of the biggest like detriments of traditional chiropractic care, where you have to keep going back forever and forever and forever. Now, you have to keep going back for a variety of reasons, like the therapy is essentially not working, like we just said a second ago. They feel good, but they don't solve your problem. But a lot of patients come to me that they get upset with people around town or chiropractors they've been seeing for years for the same problem. I'm like, it shouldn't be like that. You should know when you're going to be finished. It shouldn't last indefinitely, and you should set yourself up with the tools so that you can go and stay gone. Now, if you have questions or you want me to help you out along the way, or you want to come in just to like keep things together, or like maintenance care like we say once in a while, certainly that's the way to go, and I love seeing people for that if we want to keep building and keep strengthening as we go on. But the whole point is to go through a rehab plan in a reasonable amount of time, know when you're going to be finished, and then go off on your own, so that you don't have to keep coming back till the end of time for the same problem over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you want to empower your patients. I want to empower my clients, you know, and if something does come up, they're traveling for a bit and something irritates them, they know how to help themselves, you know, like soft tissue tools. So like we get people using massage balls, and, you know, getting them doing at home exercises so they know what they need to do if something does come up. So they don't have to wait for me or wait for Mac. It's like having those tools, like getting the knowledge within yourself to know what you need to do to take care of yourself is a big part of it too. And just learning what feels right when you're exercising, that's a big part of it. Learning how to breathe, we mentioned that earlier, like breathing is huge, and a lot of people don't breathe properly, and oftentimes is where we start, you know, and just getting people to breathe better, and then carry that into your warm-up, carry that breathing pattern into the rest of your workout, and then hopefully you carry that into the rest of your day, and start to incorporate that as your new breathing pattern for life, you know. So much shoulder stability, so much hip stability is derived off of proper breathing mechanics, and I think it's oftentimes overlooked in a lot of traditional rehab stuff, where it's just like, we got rotator cuff stuff. I'll go on the side, you can see it better. You got rotator cuff stuff, you know, where you're working that, and that's cool, and it helps to some degree, but like, if you're hunched forward, you're not breathing good, there's only so much that can do, and you can find improve mobility and improve stability just from changing that in and out. You know, a lot of times people are a little stuck on that out and they can't get enough in.
Right.
And then you end up seeing people too where they're doing an exercise and they're like gasping or holding. They're like, I feel like I can't get air in. It's like, well, you didn't exhale all the way. Yeah, you can't. So it is interesting getting people to learn that as such a fundamental thing. It just has to be there, it has to be in place, and then you can build everything on top of that. Can't do enough sit-ups, can't do enough crunches to get the same stability that you get from breathing. And I tell people that all the time. A lot of people are like, oh, I do planks, I do crunches and stuff. It's like, well, it's not quite the same. You know, it's just not.
You work on bracing and mechanics before you like worry about the actual strength of the musculature within your core.
Right, and that should run right into our next thing. It's like having the strength is awesome. Being strong makes life easier. It really does. But if you don't have the basic mechanics of like where you are in space going, there's no reason to even add a whole lot of strength stuff to what you're doing yet.
Right.
Like, you really need to have that foundational, like, positional awareness without load is key, you know? Because we add weight to dysfunction, it creates more dysfunction. And that becomes more of an issue, you know? And then you run into different pain points and then you can start chasing stuff down that way, and it's never going to get you to where you want to be. And been seeing a fair amount of that for me lately with, you know, people going through different rehab processes, and, you know, just load them up, you know, give them more weights, weight up their squat, yet they're like shifting to one direction in a squat. They got a weird little twist that's happening, and they're holding more weight than they can even control. You know, it's like, well, just incrementally, you know, progressive overload is always the thing for strength training, right? But it's like, if you're not in a place where you're ready for progressive overload, then what are we doing? Like, it's not helping anything or anybody doing that. So it's
I think that's where it's so important. I harp on this all the time, not just like on my own social media pages or in the office, but like anytime I'm in front of a crowd, I'll do like a workshop, or I'll do like some sort of lecture or something, and I harp on it so much on it's so important to understand where your pain comes from, why it is the way it is, and to like better understand your condition as a whole. So what I'm saying is, similar to what we've already said before, and kind of going off of what we were just saying a second ago, is let's say you come in with some sort of problem. You got to establish and understand why it's your problem. Why do you have that particular issue in wherever it is? Doesn't matter, neck, shoulder, low back, knees, who cares? But you got to understand through your assessment what's the problem and why does it exist. So things that I always harp on are like the three big pillars of like any chronic pain condition, and that would be you have an issue with mobility, something doesn't move the way it's supposed to, or you have an issue with stability, some particular, usually larger joint areas like hips and shoulders are not stable, certain musculature is not holding everything together in the way that it's supposed to, and then you get like compensation patterns or whatever. And then the last one being strength. Either you're too weak in an area, muscles aren't as strong as they're supposed to be, or the other like kind of tangential issue with muscular weakness is inactivation, like we said ago. Not necessarily that your muscles are weak, but they're not activating in the way that they're supposed to. So anyway, point of this entire story was when you establish which one of those pillars, if you're confining yourself to just three, which one of those avenues is your key problem. And it can be all three at the same time. The bad part about anatomy and healthcare is that it's all three at the same time sometimes. But if you establish which ones are correct, then you can formulate a plan that's more specific to that person in addition to whatever goals you may have. And therefore you can start finding the individual building blocks to a better rehab plan or better training sessions going forward. So that kind of goes back to what we said about breathing mechanics. If we happen to look at your low back and we find that your low back is largely due to weak or unstable core, or you're having problems with core stability and you're not bracing your core in the way that's possible, or that's the way that's the best for you, then we would set up a plan, and we got to make sure, okay, let's make sure these individual parts are together first of your breathing mechanics, and then we can work on, the strength of your abs and everything else, so on and so forth. So Making sure that you understand and identify which parts are compromised, I guess is the right word, and why they're compromised helps you to build that plan that's even better so that you get the best results, but you got to start at the most bare minimum level. Things like core bracing or mobility, stability issues, kind of like that, so you can put together the best possible plan, I guess, going forward.
It's not always like the most fun, a lot of times people want to just like jump right into box jumps or, want to do front squats, back squats, all that fun stuff. And they're fun exercises. And like I said, being strong is fun. I mean, it makes life way more enjoyable when you play sports, when you have hobbies that are demanding for, even if it's just carrying groceries up the second stairs in your apartment building, it's more enjoyable if it's not such a struggle. It doesn't have to be anything related to like sports at all, or any kind of like performance that you might think of, like dancing or something. It could be simply cutting the grass or weeding the grass, weeding the garden. And people are amazed at like, oh man, my back didn't hurt after weeding the garden. I was like, I was bent over for like a half an hour and I didn't have any pain. That used to kill me. Like that, it sounds silly for some people, but for a lot of people that's like reality. And you don't have to live that way. There's better solutions. Sometimes you do need to seek out help. A lot of times you do need to seek out help if you're in a place like that. But to your point, like you find out what those 3 pillars are. I think they're good staples to look into. And then once you know what your issues are, then you can go ahead and attack them. If you have a day where you wake up, you're feeling off, you already work with somebody, you know what you need to do. Like, you don't have to sit around all day feeling like that. You literally can take care of that within 5-10 minutes, do a couple things to make you feel more stable and go about your day until you get to the gym or you get to see one of your people that helps you move better and feel better. But it's such a big thing to know what your issue is, because some people, you see this in like the yoga crowd, hypermobile, always trying to stretch everything out when it feels off. And it's like, if they just would stabilize a little bit more and create better tension, they probably would feel better within moments, instead of trying to stretch that joint out even more, stretch that muscle out even more, like building a little bit more tension for them. And on the other side, if somebody is sitting all day and they're stiff, they may need to just do more mobility things and then some tension mechanism. I always think like if we're mobilizing something else probably needs stability too. It's like you usually don't want to just stretch things out or massage things out and not do the other side of the equation, because if something's tight, something's probably underactive and not functioning as well as it could as a result of that overactivity on the other side of it. So it's got to be a complementary thing. Anytime we're mobilizing things, we really want that stability component still introduced. And then you can do the fun stuff. You can go do all that stuff. Once you're in a good spot, like there is a lot of fun activities to do. But it's important that you don't overlook the things that you need, because if you move better, you can perform at higher levels, you can move more weight, you can jump higher, run faster. Oftentimes those things come as a result of just things are all sequencing better and timing out a lot better. And that's the biggest part of it, I think, is get that foundation going, and then you have options within it. You can decide what things you want to pursue within this world, because there's tons of exercises you can do. You can never do them all in a day.
It's like, definitely like you were saying a second ago, it's definitely not fun. Especially when you have to like really harp on it, but then it does become fun later when you're better. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had patients come in, and I'll have really active patients. Like we were saying before we started, like a lot of my patients are quite young. Like I get a lot of people in their like late 20s, maybe early 30s. It's a majority of the people that come see me are actually younger patients, and they're usually really, really active. I get a lot of CrossFitters, the people that hang out in gyms all the time for one reason or another. A couple people who, have competitive sport. But it's one thing to like exercise in a way that's comfortable to you. Like for example, you go to the gym and you want to work biceps, you'll do every bicep exercise that you can think of that's easy for you and still challenging to where you're doing well. But it's a totally different thing when I ask you to do exercises in the office that are targeting what you can't do. So for example, I get patients that come in, again, low back pain is the easiest thing to talk about. I'll get a patient with low back pain, and I find that their low back pain is a result of hip immobility. They have really immobile hips. And after testing, I can see that their hips don't open up or they don't move the correct way, and I think it's because one reason or another that gives rise to the low back pain, whatever. So then I start their management plan off with doing a lot of mobility drills for their hips. If your hips don't move and your problem is immobility of the hips, and I force you to do that in the office with hip mobility drills, it's hard. Even if you're someone who's really, really active, I'll get, 20-something-year-old CrossFitter who comes in and, he or she may not have really mobile hips, but they can do everything in CrossFit. They can do it all. But they still have a lot of low back pain, and I ask you to do something simple, or I show you a very simple exercise to mobilize your hips, and it's like the hardest thing ever, and they're drenched in sweat on my floor over here, and I'm like, you wouldn't think it's a hard exercise, but it is, because I'm targeting what's wrong. And that's why, like, early on, things like that are not fun, like we keep talking about. But the good news is, once you get better at them, the payoff is huge, and then you can do the fun stuff. And the fun stuff might not necessarily be like strength or stability drills in my office. The fun stuff is more like the goals that you couldn't do before. So if you're someone who I'm targeting with hip mobility drills that are not fun, that are very difficult, and you're struggling with them, and you're gassed, you're out of breath, sweating on my table, and then you're thinking, okay, I don't want to go back to this guy because he's killing me. This is a lot of work and it's not fun. I'm not enjoying this. But you realize later, hey, wait a minute, now I can go to CrossFit and I'm not having trouble. Or like the gardening or mowing the grass doesn't bother my back, like we were just saying a second ago. Then you understand that the initial exercises or the initial steps to getting better, the initial investment in your own care is a huge pain in the ass, but the payoff is really good that allows you to do fun stuff later, whether it's more fun exercises in the office like we're talking about, or it's participating in the activities that you've been missing out on. And sometimes it might not be as cut and dry as that, as like someone who can't play basketball anymore because their neck hurts, and then I get you back to basketball and you're super excited. That's very, very common, the people that come in with those kind of goals. But a lot of the more common goals are simple, everyday things. I can't tell you how many patients I had early on that came into me not because they wanted to get back to something fun, like, basketball, sports, or exercise, but because they want to get back to not having something worse. So what I mean is, I would get a lot of patients early on that would come in and say, I just need to get better because I can't keep calling out of work. I can't keep using my PTO or my vacation time and not going on vacation, but instead I'm laying at home on the couch because my pain is that bad. Or I've even had other goals that are even more simple, where they would say like, okay, I need to get out of pain, again, not to get back to sports or to get back to something that's more fun, quote unquote, but they want to be able to lift their groceries, go up and down the stairs, or they want to be able to like sit on the floor and play with their kids or grandkids is more common, grandkids. But to be able to like get up and down off the floor for those things. So like we keep saying a second ago, going through an initial rehab plan or exercise protocol when you're in pain or you're trying to establish a particular goal is not always the most enjoyable thing at first or in the beginning, and especially if we're targeting the things that you're not good at. But once you start to get better at them and you start to improve, and those things that we initially had you doing are getting easier, then you get the better payoff of one, not being in pain or building better strength, whatever the case may be, and getting back to the activities or the goals that you set for yourself. So it's not always the most fun thing on the planet to go through this kind of stuff, but the payoff's huge.
But if you do like working out, like if you are into exercising, like you wear a heart rate monitor, like you'll see your heart rate goes up. Like it's hard work, and it's like, just because it doesn't look like your traditional like thought process of like, oh, I'm loaded up and I'm lifting really heavy, like you're still making your body go through taxing stuff. And I think that's important to realize, is just because it's not like this crazy movement, it's targeting areas that are really weak, or they're really just not functioning well. And when we make them function better, it's a good workout still, you know, and the reality of it is your joints move better. And so you have liberated yourself. And, you know, if you are into working out, don't shy away from it. I know it's like sometimes people just don't want to do it because it is hard and it's different than what they used to doing. They have their routines they like to do, but your routine's not always the thing that's going to get you where you want to be. And oftentimes it's perpetuating some of your problems because you're skipping out and you found ways to compensate, to get around your weak areas, and you just continue to move a certain way and you leave the gym and you don't feel any better. That's an issue. That should be your sign. Like, you should leave the gym feeling a lot better than when you walked in. Like, you may be tired, you may feel like your muscles are worked, but you should feel like, man, I'm engaged now. I feel more connected to my own self. And that's a big part of what we both do, really, is making you feel more connected to your own body from your center of control in your brain, controlling the rest of your limbs. And it's huge. There's nothing more important than that when you're in the gym. That, in my opinion, like what more value is there from anything else that you do in the gym than getting more like control? You know, like the other stuff is like novelty on top of that. You know, which is cool. Like, I love strength training. You know, but it's like if I don't have the right control, it's like it's not the day to do it. You know, I'd rather spend the time on some of those things. Again, they are challenging still, but you're going to get way more out of it in the long run by just taking the time to get the right stuff going and then build on top of that. So
that's why we were talking before, and that's why like it's one of those key components to, lack of a better phrase, getting better, that we were talking about earlier, is that's why you got to work together as like a team, as petty as that sounds. But like when you have these specific goals, and obviously the big conversation of what we're talking about is largely pain, but it might not necessarily be pain. Sometimes once in a while people will come to one of us or another, it doesn't matter who, with goals that aren't necessarily painful, but more of like a restriction type thing. Like, for example, I've had patients in the past, not in my practice now, but I've had patients in the past that would say like, hey, this thing doesn't hurt, but I can't do this. So I came to you because I want to be able to do X, Y, or Z again, but it doesn't hurt. And I'm like, okay. So initially you wrap your head around that and you're like, all right, well, what are you seeing me for? Because like everybody's supposed to see me for pain, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be. But the point of this story is that's why it's good to work with multiple people that have your best interest at heart and that help you work towards your goals. So for example, you might come see me and maybe you are one of those people that's not in pain, but what you're trying to achieve is not, what is going on with you is not allowing you to achieve what you want. So for example, let's take something easy. Let's say you want to get back to tennis, but your shoulder, whatever, is stuck or immobile. You're like, it doesn't really hurt, but I can't do my backhand swing as good as I used to. So, you know, I'll work with you initially to get you set up, and then I say, all right, well, now what you want to do for the long haul to make sure you can maintain this mobility or stability, strength, whatever it is you want to work alongside someone else going forward to make sure you can maintain that level of idealness, that's the wrong word, but you want to work with someone that you can work together to obtain your goals. So for example, that patient would see me for X, Y, or Z, and then I would send you off to like personal trainer, or I'd send you off to like Nate so that you can continue in what your goal is outside of what you and I just did. So that's why you got to like work as a team or with multiple providers every so often to get the most out of what you're looking for. You know, so it's one of the better ways of going about things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as you evolve in your journey, journey's a word in this world. It is a thing, a path. You know, it's like you need different professionals all along the way. It's like you don't just have a GP. You know, it's like they're like one part of it, right? You need to have people that help you with your movement, people that help you with your mental health and your diet. Like you can seek these things out. You don't have to do them all at once, but you should have filled out a team around you, as Mac was just saying. It's like you want to have people that have your best interest. And then when things do go sideways and goes a little bit off the path that you want to be on, then you got people in your corner, and it's like, hey, you get with them, you get some help, and you keep moving forward towards where you want to be. And being able to make that like recognition early on, you know, like if you are already on a good path and you realize you're deviating from where you like to see yourself, or your trajectory you feel like it's changing, you know, you can contact these professionals they're going to help you out. And I think that's important thing to always be mindful of, is that we all need these things. I need these things, Mac needs these things. Nobody is exclusive from it, and so it's important that you just stay on it, you know, because it's your well-being too, you know. And the moral of the story is you're not broken. You are able to correct some things and you will feel better, you know. Like that's ultimately like what we're trying to get at with all of what we do every day, all day. You know, it's like we want to get that message across to people. So many people think like, oh, this is just the way it is, and it's a sad reality for many, but it's not always true. It's really not true at all. Like if you're willing to take onus and you're willing to put in the work, I believe the body is highly adaptable. I've seen it happen over the years many times. Don't have to just like be satisfied with you know, pain, satisfied with, even if you're not in pain. Like I deal with people who have issues mechanically when they play pickleball and when they move around, but like generally they're not like in tons of pain. And sometimes I have people that come in with pain, but it's really about just moving better. It's like, so your issues aren't like coming up when you're doing the things that you want to do. And you can, if you're alive and able to take a breath, you can start making changes today. You know,
that seems scary at first, or it might seem like a long road ahead. You know, whatever other kind of cliche descriptions you want to give it. But you know, the first time you get started, whether it's getting out of pain or getting in shape, whatever it is, then almost every single person always wishes they did it sooner. Almost every time. Yeah. So it's like, you know, I've had patients that have been in pain for like, I had one patient that was in here not too long ago who he's had pain in his shoulder for like 15 years. I'm like, so then you kind of get worried. I'm like, all right, am I gonna be able to help somebody that's had pain for this long? But you know, sometimes you have patients that have had a problem for like a year or two, and I'm like, okay, well then when you start doing this better avenue of care and investing in your health the right way through like the right protocols of getting you better, almost everybody says, Megan, I should have done this a while ago, or I should have done XYZ before. And I'm sure it's the exact same when it comes to at least, you know, training. Everybody that has like some sort of personal goal, when you go see a personal trainer, you know, you want to get stronger, you want to lose weight, you want to build XYZ, whatever your goal is, then, you know, you're afraid at first, or you're like, you know, everybody rolls their eyes and they're like, damn it, you know, I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to do this or that. But then the second you start doing it, then it's hard to get yourself out of it, you know, like especially when it comes to like training or exercise or going to the gym. Everybody rolls their eyes, lacing up their sneakers for the first time and driving to the gym, and they don't want to go. But then when you start getting into that routine and you see the benefits paying off, then you're like, okay, this was totally worth it. I should have done this a while ago. And then in a lot of cases, you find yourself not being able to stop, which is, you know, depends on who you are. It might be a good or a bad thing. But you you start going 10,000 miles an hour, and then you get upset when you miss a day. And you're like, you know, when you think back and you're like, man, I didn't even want to get through the first week of all this kind of thing. And then you're like upset that you missed going in a day that you wanted to or whatever. So it seems like a long road ahead or a daunting path, but it really isn't so bad once you get moving. And then once you get moving and you get started, whether it's, you know, chiropractic care or training or exercise, whatever, then almost everybody wishes they did it a while ago. Yeah, and that's the snowball effect, right? It's like once you get it going, you don't have to think 10 years down the road. You just get today done, and keep building on it. You know, once you get a little bit of momentum, like I used to be really heavy. I used to be 284 pounds. You know, it's like now I hated the gym. I remember many days where I pulled in the parking lot and didn't go in and pulled out. You know, it's like, all right, I'm headed home from work, and you know, and now it's like I am that way. I have to plan off days. So if I don't, then I don't recover the way I need to, and that's the other side of it that you have to consider. But like, you do build momentum and you build energy. Literally, like you put into this, it's like putting money into your bank account that gets interest. Like it pays you back. It starts giving you dividends later on after you start putting into it. So
it's amazing, you know, and I think it literally is life changing. So, and if you're up for changing your life, you know, either one of us will be happy to help you do that. So,
Exactly.
Just hop on in here and we'll get you moving. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody taking the time today.
Of course.
Mac, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're a great
Anytime.
guy. So, looking forward to more conversations
Yeah.
like this. So,
Of course. You got it, man.
you guys get busy.